on the invite, and I'll hand over to you. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll take some questions at the end.
Hi everyone. Do they normally sign here or the big screen? Hi. So apologies for the funny accent. So hi to those that are online and in person. So just a bit of a hand. Who is landscape architects? Fantastic. Hi. Who is planners? No urban planner. Fantastic. I don't like them at all. Architects. Civil engineers. Okay. Architects these days don't have egos. It's fine. Civil engineers. Any other profession I did not mention? Academics, sorry. Apologies.
Some urban designers as well.
Oh, urban designers, yes. We're going to talk about urban designers today as well. Any urban designers? Hi, Thomas. Okay. So I have a funny accent. I'm not from overseas, from here. Afrikaans. Okay. If I start speaking Afrikaans, it means it's quite bad. So we're going to talk about the things that happens beyond this university campus, the real life. Now, are we second or first years, third years? So we've been through the system. We're not jaded yet.
Masters.
Ask them. We're not jaded yet. No. Okay. So I change by doing what again? Do I have to stand here? Fantastic. Okay. So as a title, it's quite clear. So who knows about Young Urbanists? 1, 2, I'm counting. 3, 4, 5, 6, good. So normally, if you've seen our work, we're quite mobility-centric. But today, we're going to talk about how can we apply what we've done in mobility, and mobility is broad. So anything from road safety, public transportation, minibus taxis, the microeconomy, and how do we apply it to green infrastructure? Do we all agree that when it comes to our cities, so we're an urbanized country, the state of our cities, they consist of urban sprawl, car centricity, grey infrastructure. No one's contesting that. It's quite crap, the state of our cities. Anyone can counter that. And it's not very sophisticated characterization of our cities, but that's the reality. They're divided, urban sprawl, car centricity, grey infrastructure, right? So how do we apply this? How do we advocate for green infrastructure? We all know what we mean by green infrastructure. So I don't need to advocate or tell you the benefits of green infrastructure, but it's very obvious. It does a lot to our cities. It can, for example, we all breathe oxygen, right? Urban heat effect, resilient water, climate change. So we need more green infrastructure. But I'm not going to make that argument today. I hope we're on the same page when it comes to we need more green infrastructure. And for those that are architects, we obviously need to design beyond just the building, but how does the building interact with the streets? And for civil engineers, we're not car-centric. Yes, good, fantastic. So a bit of structure. I'm from Young Urbanists. I work at Young Urbanists. I'm an urban planner. And basically, we're here about supporting young people, advocating for change. In a way, we just came from a planning disaster by the city of Cape Town, a 2-day planning disaster. And what we're taking is the idealism that what we're normally taught at university level and take it into the practice around how do we find a middle between those things that we hold dearly, the reasons why we are here today, whether it's architecture, urban planning, landscape, or urban design, and make it relevant into the real world. It needs to have a commercial model. You need to work for others, communities, from the private sector to clients, finance, barriers. So we're trying to find a balance between young people, empowering them so they can navigate the complexities when they leave education. So that transition from where you are now into practice, it's a very hard transition, and it gets harder. I made architects, landscape architects that I've worked in the city or private sector that are 40, 50. They're not happy. They're jaded. So while the city is changing, we'll talk about that in a second, people that have been in practice for many years, for the reasons perhaps that you're here today, feel they're not achieving what they set out when they were at UCT or any other academic institution. So it's not all doom and gloom, but practice is not, it's not happy. Okay. So I want to talk about how do we as Young Urbanists, with our partners, assist young people, academic institutions like UCT, to realize we have a great constitution, we have great policies, but we have little implementation, especially when it comes to urban design and landscape architecture and mobility. So this is a beautiful drawing we did, part of our program with the Road Traffic Management Corporation, and you can see the Uber logo there, and you ask why, because they actually funded this. We're independent, so we're not captured by any means. And what we did was we working on something called road safety for the whole country called Safer Streets. So after this lecture, one person will die on our roads. By the end of today, 37 people will die. That will cost our economy south of 2 billion rand per annum, per year. And that's because we design roads for cars, speed, but also because of behavior. It's complex. So you can see this beautiful illustration we did. You see the Johannesburg, you see the Gautrain. Yes, it's exclusive minibus taxis, the microeconomy. So we work on a holistic level. We mostly work in our cities. We're about empowering young people, and we're quite mobility-centric. We also work in the housing space, Airbnb regulations, rental control support, and other things. But again, Young Urbanists is open to anyone, it's free to join, and any ideas. We're a wide church of people. We're not homogenous. We have economists in our ranks. We have parliamentarians. We have urban designers, the usual lot, and others. As you can see, we've done a lot of work on mobility. This is our work with Safer Streets, as mentioned, across the country. We've done a lot of workshops, and then we find low-hanging fruit that we can change. An example is, for example, it's now legal to have an e-bicycle on the road. Amendments to the National Traffic Service Act. We're looking at reviews that has started, by the way, of signalization. Has anyone waited for a robot to cross as a pedestrian? It just never tends. So we actually now initiated reforms, national reforms, because the guidelines we have that were promulgated in the dawn of democracy is quite crap and outdated. So very car-centric, and we're changing that. And there's a lot of changes, particularly in local government. Hi, welcome. Please find a seat anywhere. Hello. So for those that have just joined, we're talking about who we are as Young Urbanists, and we'll be talking about applying our lessons to urban mobility to fight for more green infrastructure in our cities. So we've done a lot of work, partnerships. We also have a public-private partnership. We've made intersections always on. We upgrading cycling lanes. You can see on the right-hand corner. Next month we'll be upgrading Bree Street, albeit it's a class 3 cycling lane. In other words, it's paint, so it doesn't give any protection. We've been to Decorex. We have partners in the mobility space. For example, Urban Think Sunken Power. Does anyone know about Urban Think Sunken Power? Yeah. So you must know that they're showing how to densify or repurpose informality into formality. It's all privately led. Beautiful. So just Google Urban Think Sunken Power in Kelicha, and they have models across the country. Safer Streets is a big facet. We work a lot in the last mile delivery space. We have done a lot of advocacy. There's the current Minister for Transportation, Barbara Creasy. We've had many events to highlight macroeconomy and why we need to fight for infrastructure and ballot allocation. Most recently, we've unlocked a new tool called street experiments. In other words, we have great policies as a country, but we don't have the allergy in government to test something out. So what we're doing with street experiments is we're closing down the street with no events permit. That is very significant. So it means the cost of closing down the streets, we can test it out. What will be the effect if the street is closed? We're taking this to Langa later this year, to Noon. We're working with UCT around schools. So the work we're doing is quite relevant around how can we get the data, no public participation, and then advocate for more budget and make that permanent around road changes. So we've identified there's not a lot of work mobility, and now we're giving municipalities from Johannesburg to Swane, Durban, to Cape Town the tools and reforms, and it's all about partnerships. So we are quite critical, but we work with government and we have good relationships. There's a fine balance, and government shouldn't cancel you because you're critical. You should not target people because of who they are or what political party, but by their ideas. That's very important when it comes to advocacy. But then always have a solution to what you're arguing that is relevant to the policy and the constraints that those municipalities are facing. So that's what we've done. Mobility. Right down the corner, we have Nilligan Street and Breathe, a big street that exploded. That's now changing into a transit-only mall. We're just waiting on for the city to, I think there's a bit of problem appointing the contractors. I'm not going to go into that. On the right-hand corner, this is in Letotoli Avenue. We are developing something called modular concrete pieces. Again, part of our street experiments to have furniture, to more spaces to sit, and then also use that as a way to redefine a street and create third spaces that we desperately need. At the end of today, we're not a car-centric country. We're actually a pedestrian public transportation country. Just our cities and towns are designed for cars. That's very important. Remember that. We're not car-centric. It's just how we design our cities. But the majority of our people, and we're all pedestrians, by the way, at the end of the day, we all have to walk from our cars. Some big wins. This is the first ever protected intersection designed by the city of Cape Town in the country. This originates from the 2014 National NMT Guidelines. So this was promulgated in 2014, signed by whatever minister back then. And for the first time, we're seeing this as a planned part of a municipality that will be implemented in Barkenfold. So what do you think about cyclists? Is it a white man's sport, or is it a means of getting from A to B in a very affordable way? What's the thoughts?
I think it's fun for everyone.
Fine, sure, but I'm talking about this perception. Oh, should we allocate space for cyclists, or should we put our attention to more housing, for example? Yeah. Yeah.
But sorry, not cyclists, commuters.
Yeah, commuters, exactly. So the majority of cyclists in our country are people earning between 2,000 to 6,000 rand a month, not those 150,000 bicycles in Lycra. The biggest irony of the Cape Town Cycling Tour, it was founded to advocate for infrastructure for non-white South Africans. It's an oxymoron. Who participated in Cape AUKUS, whatever it's called these days? No one? Okay. Good. So that was the reason by the founders. It was there to advocate for infrastructure for non-white South Africans. So that's just happening. The biggest problem now, the cities, they don't have budget. For example, we'll only be able to implement this 9 to 15 years from now. I'm 30, I don't want to be 45 to see this happening. Something else which we're going to talk about in a second is that part of our work is we are advocating for new designs around NMT. And that's now being promulgated into the city storms, water, and roads manual. We all need to know what that is. If we're going to work in this municipality, the city storms, water, and roads manual, that is a document they use to guide all new streets, everything that you see around you. If it's not in that document, it won't happen. You can have nice urban design ideas, you can have nice green infrastructure ideas, but if it's not in this document, it won't happen. We'll get to that in a second. Now, I apologize if I seem a bit doom and gloom, but I want to highlight the seriousness of what awaits you when you leave this building. But then I want to talk about how we can change that. And it starts not by me or this institution, but it starts with you. Okay, so what's the role of landscape architecture or any professions? And look, I actually don't know a lot about landscape architecture, so you're going to have to excuse me. I'm getting my notes now. And the reason for that is I'm quite passionate. So I've written a lot about decolonization. I've written a lot about SUDS. For those that don't know what SUDS are, Sustainable Urban Drainage System. And I want to talk about what's the role of architects and landscape architecture in the post-apartheid context. Now, who knows where this is? It's in Gauteng, that's my one tip. But it looks good, right? Looks like indigenous biodiversity. Any guess? It's done by a very famous landscape architect. Sorry? It's a private garden. We'll go into that in a second, yes. Who knows Patrick Watson? Patrick Watson, okay, he's a very famous landscape architect. I had a meeting with the former head of mobility and observatory, and I walked to the bookstore and I went for the books, and there, behold, I saw Patrick Walton, and I looked for the books, and then I saw something that's been in the news for some time, something called Stain City in Gauteng. Who knows Stain City near Midrand? Now we go. Okay, so there's a better picture. You can see the highlands, and if we were to take a step back, it's basically urban sprawl. And it's a space that's beautifully designed. I mean, I think it's gorgeous, frankly, but who can access those spaces? So for the landscape and the architects in the room, we have a situation where there's almost two kind of paradigms. Those that work in public sector that are struggling because of corruption, lack of funding, unethical civil engineers, whatever the case might be, versus those who work in the private sector for money. Those are your two options. Or you can join me in civil society. But at this rate, how am I talking my tone? I don't think a lot of people will be joining me. But the point is, those are the two options. So that's the paradigm. I might be wrong. Please challenge me. But that's how I see it. So I guess then the next question: what's the relevance and power of landscape and architecture in the public sector? Is it a nice thing to have when it comes to urban design? Is it front and center decision making, right? So the nice thing about working in the state is that anything you do in the private sector, theoretically, you should be external. So what the state does, private sector does. Those are the relationship. It's not always the case because you have ad hoc market development like Stain City that was environmentally zoned, got rezoned, shouldn't have happened, despite the amazing work that Patrick did when the site came to being. So this is a map I got from MIT. What are we seeing? Sorry, the quality might be bad. What can someone tell me what are you seeing? It's a map of Cape Town. So you can see here, this is the city block. This is where I live, this is the office, and we are here right now. So what that map shows is shade distribution across the city of Cape Town. It's it gives a very bleak picture of how little change we've had since post-apartheid when it comes to key things like planting trees. It's not rocket science to plant a tree. So shade, just like income, access, is unequally distributed because of a history. Not because of because of a history, but it's a bit of a red herring now. How many years has been post-apartheid democracy? More than 30 years. We've done little when it comes to as simple as planting trees, give oxygen, combat the urban heat effect, bring dignity and justice to people that have been excluded for how long? So that's the reality of practice. And look, the City of Cape Town has great policies. In fact, one of those policies are due today for comment. We'll go into a second. So what can we do about it? This is the good part. Fight back, literally. So what I mean by that is I encourage everyone to join civil society. And of course, one of the biggest, I think, positives that I've mentioned, I'm part of the Friends of the Leaseback. We're all in the Friends of the Leaseback. Friends of the Leaseback, yeah. Is to join this lot of friends group across the city, from urban wetlands, from rivers, from public parks. Join these groups. The city encourages it. It's what we were at Klein Zapa, and the director for Parks and Recreation. One of the things he boasted about is that there's so many friends groups and they're joining. So join your friends groups. There are NGOs like here, Mzansi Organics and the Soji Forest Maker. They're planting literally urban forests in places like Philippi, like Delft, like Dunoon. So there are entities, non-state actors that are doing something about this. So it's not gloom and doom. So I encourage you to join those NGOs, Young Urbanists, whoever, it doesn't matter. Be active, even if it's allocating 1 hour a week. This is us at the Leaseback doing on international wetland, doing a cleanup, and we're doing a lot of work, which I'll go to in a second. Other things, speak to your ward councillor. Did you guys know that for each ward, there's a ward committee? And that ward committee decides where they allocate money and also have a better relationship with different line departments. Ask your ward council and join your ward committee. Become active in your university. This is where it starts. Become active now, not tomorrow, now. And of course, join your professional groups like ISLA. I pronounced that completely wrong, but we know what it is. For architects, it's CIFA, UDISA, and so forth. Please join. There's some good people. They're struggling with memberships. I know. I spoke to all of the chairs. They're struggling. They want young people. They want young voices. Okay, so there's no excuse. And if there's a problem, you can come talk to me. I pretend I know everyone in Cape Town. So one of my personal projects, because it's my lecture, I can talk about things I do, is that as mentioned in my introduction, thank you, is that I love SUDS. I think we should have SUDS everywhere. If I see another normal grey drain system, I want to throw up and destroy it, frankly, and replace it with a SUD. So what we're doing now is we're doing a pilot along the Lisbeck with I forgot the name of the consultant, but apologies. But we're doing
Isla.
Yes, it's Isla. Yes, Antoinette. With Antoinette. Antoinette's lovely, and we need more people. And if you want to work with someone that's lovely, go apply to her organization. Christina has all the details. So and she's doing this pro bono with her team. Do you all know about the Livable Urban Waterways program? One person. What are you guys being taught? Okay. Cool. So we're doing a start. We're doing a pilot, and basically what that means is it will be in the road reserve. So usually I'm going to give you some SUD examples. So actually, there's 2 SUD examples that I know of that exist, because I used to go around and say there's no SUDs, blah blah blah, but I was correctly corrected. And we want to showcase to the city this can be done, because currently the city of Cape Town has 2 policies: green infrastructure programs, something around those lines, and then they have the latest urban design, quality spaces. And both of those documents talk about water and biodiversity sensitive urban design that includes sites. But it's not in the Storms Water Notes manual. So it doesn't mean it will happen, because there's no statutory implication. So this is what we're doing. Again, so for us as Young Urbanists is that we like to criticize, but we want to show pilots, raise our own capital, do it ourselves with government, of course, and show them this can be done so that we can institutionalize that process and we can scale it across the metro. Because it has to be done not in places like Lisbeck, but it has to be done the Noon, Kellycha, and so forth. So one of the things that I want to talk about now is that we need to become activists. Whether it's incremental, whether it's subtle, or whether it's hardcore, we need to become activists. And of course, we have to support ethical officials in government. That's very important. There's some really great, hardworking ethical officials, landscape architects, urban designers, economists in government. So you have to understand, any local governments are not homogeneous. So we can't just attack. We need to understand the different powers, dynamics within a very complex, large, bloated organization. Who knows where this is? No? Yes. And so do we know Liesl Kruger Fountain? She might have been here before. Very talented urban designer, person, human being. And basically this building here is next to the Civic Center. When it came to be, you would have had dead urbanism. If you've gone to the foreshore beyond Strand Street, it's just dead urbanism. A typical symptom of comprehensive rational planning from the National Party regime. And you have a big urban regeneration space that is fully dead. So in other words, what I mean by dead urbanism is that you have walls, there's no shops, there's no interaction, and there's no green spaces. And this building would have been exactly the same. So when she was an urban designer, she's been promoted since then. She had to negotiate with the applicant to have this front-facing building. But with that, I can't have a picture of that, but there's a beautiful SUD. And there's actually 2 white cats that live there, by the way. It's a beautiful SUD. It's a very calming space, complete juxtaposition to all the normal buildings we get if you were to review them last, all the buildings we get. So SUDS do exist. This is in Hermanus. This was done by Gap Architecture and Designers. Again, this can be done. It's a class 5 road, single grade, and it has SUDS. I can't show you a picture of that SUD, but again, it can be done. And again, guys, this is an economical argument. Spaces for people over cars. Cars don't shop. You don't have to park in front of the shop. You can walk 5 minutes. You won't die. And I'm not applying to disabled people. In other words, people tend to confuse the two or say, well, what about, yes, if you're commercial emergency vehicle or you're disabled, you have allocated parking. But the rest of us with 2 feet, we can walk. The Bree Street experiment, we have shown there's a 20% increase in sales by closing down the streets. 20% increase, yeah? From before. So back to my point. Sorry, apologies. Profuse apologies. It's called the Standards and Guidelines Roads and Stormwater. So back to urban mobility. The kind of name of this talk is that we've gotten this protected cycle lanes into that document. 2 years ago, if you would have told me that would have happened, I would have said we would be joking. So we managed to do that. Mail support, consistent advocacy. The next leg of our journey is to get green infrastructure SUDS into that document. They can be part of the spatial planning team, but if they're not in this document, it won't simply happen. So who knows about this? This is due today. Comment session. 2 people. Are you guys commenting? Take you 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's due tonight. Use AI, I don't care. Comment. So if at least, look, I know I'm not going to make anyone raise their hands committing they'll comment, but if at least 5% of this group can comment tonight, it'll make a difference. Because there's someone that sat here about 15 years ago, that's probably where you sat, that are working in the city, and they're wondering why people are not commenting or supporting. Now, I'm not going to defend them. They're very bad at their communication to begin with, frankly. But this is due today, and you are technical people. I would highly urge you to allocate 10 minutes to comment on the market draft Cape Town Biodiversity. It's replacing something else. We're going to do a comment. If you need our draft template, reach out. My contact details will be here. Happy to share. So it's very important that the City of Cape Town wants your views. Please utilize your voice. If you share them on WhatsApp or Twitter or X, no one's going to hear you. Okay? 5-10 minutes. That's all that's required to make a comment. This was approved by council last year. Do we know what this is? It's the latest urban design guidelines. Now, as always, great document, little implementation. I have some good news. I spoke to Erica Nodia. Erica Nodia, she's the director for urban planning and design at the City of Cape Town. Is that there's something called incentive overlay zones that's coming. Did you guys see the planning bylaws? There was a big hurrah. Yeah. So with that, and it looks like it's going to be approved, with the incentive overlay zone, and by the way, it's from a student that was here, that studied here, who wrote that. There will be conditional urban design guidelines with that zone. So for the first time in our bylaws, we'll have urban design conditions. Previously, this is a nice consideration. Lumps, they're the ones who approve everything in the city. They usually eat their own cake. When I was on my Uber to here, I had a call with the deputy mayor to complain that they didn't participate in the Ndaba yesterday that was organized by Erica and the team. Again, the city is fragmented. Don't view the city as one. That's the most dangerous mistake you'll make in your career. And then, yeah, again, this opportunity to have your voice said, and your voice counts. Utilize them, but use them at democratic channels. And of course, as Young Urbanists and your CFAS, your DSA is there to help guide you. So reach out, they're there to support you. You can't do it alone. So the other thing is, because we don't just have landscape architects in the room, become the other. So for those that are landscape architects, become architects and vice versa. And why I say that is the most impactful people I've seen in practice is people that have a multidisciplinary approach to the urban built environment. An example is that I mentioned street experiments. This is something we did this is in the heart of Pretoria, CBD. Again, it's a new way to repurpose the street, no public participation. And what that means is you can put planter boxes. So you can start introducing this idea of green infrastructure into a very gray infrastructure space. So there's other things we need to look at so we can test something out, get the data, and then make it permanent. This is, I'm not supposed to show you this, but this is our second street experiment. This is, again, it's free between Whale and Short Market Street. This is the first ever street experiment that's been approved by any municipality in this country. It's been approved. And what we're doing is we're doing a complete road diet. So we're taking a dual lane and we're turning into one lane. So for the first time ever, we can test something out, and we'll be working with some amazing architects. This is, again, we're working with UTTE, where we're going to put some modular concrete pieces with trees. So again, we're fighting as much as we can to introduce greenery into the city with our work around safer streets, and giving councillors and officials new tools to test new cross-section road designs out. Because what's happening now is we've had great plans and policies, but none of those policies or plans have been implemented. It's due to politics. It's due to other departments eating their own cake, like civil engineering or LUMS. That has changed now, by the way. Or it's to do with budget. Just don't have the budget. Other priorities. So I realized that my presentation wasn't probably the most, but I wanted to kind of illustrate the stark illustration of what awaits you. But change is indeed possible, but it starts with you.